What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the very first UFC podcast that I'm doing. I put this out there a little while ago on my channel. Just wanted to see and kind of gauge what people thought about it. It didn't get a ton of clicks, ton of likes, whatever, but it's something that I enjoy. Football's kind of dead right now. Not a whole lot going on in the pre-draft stuff. Teams are kind of standing still. I'm a big UFC fan. A little bit about me. I have very seriously gotten into UFC. I haven't practiced it. I'm not an expert by any means, but I did want to bring on my old man to hang out with the podcast. Hopefully, we're going to be doing these a lot more frequently, especially as big UFC fights come on. So, Pops, why don't you go ahead and give them a little intro, tell them about yourself, tell the world, tell the Hook Cam fan base, if you will.
Hook Cam fan base. Yeah, I've been a UFC fan going back to the very, very first UFC back in the early 90s, and been around that, watching it a lot. I spent a little time doing some grappling work, some other martial arts, but I do have also a big fan of boxing, so really, really hard not to admire the UFC and the MMA game as it is. So I'm looking forward to talking a little bit about some of the upcoming fights that they've got. 259 gave us a lot of material to discuss for today.
Yeah, it really did. And that was kind of one of the things where we decided to pull the trigger and do this was, last night, we're recording this on a Sunday. Last night, Saturday, we had UFC 259. We had, is it Peter Yan? How do you pronounce that dude's first name?
Peter Yan.
Peter Yan, yeah. Okay, Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy fight, obviously controversial. We had Amanda Nunes run through Megan Anderson, Izzy Yan. The prelims were insane. Everything about the fight card was really good. The Amanda Nunes fight was kind of a joke. No offense to Megan Anderson, but it just gave us a lot of material, gave us a lot of stuff to talk about. And so I was like, it's dead right now with football. Might as well branch out a little bit, see what's up. And we do want to clarify. We were talking about this last night. We are not experts. I'm definitely not. I've been in I played football, so I've kind of been in a scrap before, but not necessarily getting punched in the face. Yeah, you've had a couple of schoolyard tillies. I don't know. We'll probably dive into that at some point, but
Yeah, at some point. That was back in the day.
back in the day with the old guy.
Yeah, picking apart that card last night in the Amanda Nunes fight, she's so good that she takes away any kind of discussion that you could possibly have about other fights. I don't know where she goes moving forward. They're going to have to either drag Ronda Rousey out for another beating, or
I don't think she wants to come on for another beating.
probably not. And I don't. We actually watching this fight last night said this Megan Cat's not making it out of the first round.
No, that was pretty unanimous. So a little bit about the background on us when we watch these fights. We watch them with a couple of my really good friends. We'll kind of Facebook them in and watch it, live on a webcam with those guys. And we looked at the odds. I think Amanda Nunes was minus 910, which is insane odds. But before we dive into Amanda Nunes just plowing through everybody without any problem, apparently. If you guys do enjoy this, if you could hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to my channel, The Hook Cam, that would mean the world to me. Might talk to Jackson, see if he wants a little UFC pod on his podcast, on his channel. I don't know if he will or not, but even if he doesn't, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to his channel. He's an absolute stud, phenomenal human being. That's why I plug him on everything. People are always like, why you plug Jackson? I could think because Jackson's a great dude. So that's the bottom line there. But before we dive into Amanda Nunes and Megan Anderson, we got to talk about this Yan Sterling fight because a ton of controversy. I mean, the first couple of rounds I thought were all Yan. Sterling had some phenomenal energy coming out of the gate. He really did. He had great energy. You can tell how athletic that cat is. He is an athlete through and through. Yep. And, just kind of walk us through what you saw, what you thought, and ultimately, we'll kind of get to the knee and get into what we think of that. But before the knee, where did you think that fight was going? Who did you think was winning? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, so Sterling to me flows when he has the time and the distance. He can use his leverage and his long arms and his long legs, and he can kind of go out there and just dance around and do what he wants to do. Mm-hmm. And as the fight started to unfold in that first round, Yan was not going to let him do that. What I noticed is that, especially on like the spinning maneuvers
Yeah.
that Sterling was doing, Jan closed the gap on him
Very quickly.
very quickly. So if he stayed out on the outside, he was going to be right in the wheelhouse for Sterling to hit him. He didn't. He closed the gap on him, and if you remember, there was a few times where he ran right up into his back because he moved in instead of moving out.
Yeah, and that's something that for me. Okay, I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
And that what that did from my observation, it messed up Sterling's timing. So once that happened, to me, it looked like Sterling didn't really have a game plan for that. He really didn't. He thought he was going to be able to move a lot, do his, and he has some great movement, but Jan just closed the door on it.
Yeah.
I felt that Jan from very early on in that fight was very, very much in control of the fight. He was the champion. He acted like the champion right up until the knee.
Yeah.
And he had control of that fight. And to me, no question, wasn't a close fight at all. So I think that they read off the scorecard, if I'm not mistaken, where it was a lot closer on the scorecard than what I thought it should have been.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point too, because and again, like we said, I'm not an expert. Pop's got a lot more knowledge on this stuff than I do because he's been watching it a lot longer. But from my minor knowledge of it, when I was looking at Jan fighting, I didn't see the tight fight that the judges had put out there when they read
Not
that.
at all.
Not at all.
Not
and
at all.
like I thought that Jan was very strategic with how he was fighting. He knew that Aljamain Sterling was going to come out and be an energetic dude, flying around, trying to catch him, and there's no doubt that he is. But he was very calculated in everything he did. And you're right, Sterling went for that like big time knockout, that spinning back fist. He had a couple of wild kicks too. And Jan was very calculated, came close to the body, which is, for me, like watching it, you see that fist coming out, you want to back away. You want to get away from it.
Inclination is to back up, and you shouldn't. You should move into it.
Right, because you back up, you're going to get on the tail end of that
You're
thing.
going to be right in the wheelhouse.
Yeah, and so but Jan was very calculated in that, and it looked impressive. But at what round did they get in? Was there anything else before the knee that you saw that you want to hit on?
No, I thought if it made it to I think that the knee controversy happened in the fourth round.
Yeah, we were getting we were getting late into the
and
fight.
I think that what was happening in my mind was Jan was starting to measure him, and he was. Now I can't say that he was going to knock him out. Can't say that, but I think that Sterling was probably going to lose that fight anyway. And the knee incident happened. You had mentioned, anybody who's played any sports knows that when you're in the heat of the moment,
right?
And we can talk about the knee now because I think that's where this conversation's going.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to say before that was when you look at the momentum game of it, because just like in UFC, just like in football, I have a background in football. Pop's got a background in every sport. Momentum has such a huge, right? Yeah. It's such a huge factor. Yep. Sterling, I think, when you, at least in the fight last night, and I'm still young, so I don't know the entire background on him, but you can tell that I think he's a guy who really thrives in chaos. It looks like when you see a fighter who, to me, it looks like when Sterling's fighting a dude and that guy gets freaked out because Sterling's throwing shit at him that he hasn't seen, he's trying spinning back fist. Yeah, there's the panic factor, right? And so you can start catching dudes when they aren't expecting it. You can start catching dudes on spinning back fists when they're trying to get away. You can catch dudes on these crazy kicks. But Jan, like I said, very calm, very cool, very
measured,
collected.
Very, very much in control.
And you could tell that momentum was swinging in Jan's direction. You could tell that Sterling was like, shit, now what do I do?
Yeah, I felt that early on. I felt that that Sterling's game plan, sort of when he saw that he couldn't do what he wanted to do with a lot of the kicks that he had, and a lot of that mobility was not affecting the fight the way he wanted it to go. And like I said, Jan was just moving in and taking that distance away. That seemed to create a problem for Sterling, but I don't think that Jan was just a professional. Like I said, right up until the knee. And he was very measured. Sterling had some great moments where he threw off some great punches. Jan wore him. He put his hands up, took the punches, blocked what he could, got hit by some, but he stood up. It didn't look to me at any point like he was hurt. I think it would have gone into the fifth round, I think the outcome still would have been the same. I don't think Sterling would have won it.
Yeah,
You know,
I completely agree. If that fight kept going, I don't think there was any question in my eyes, at least. And that was, like we talked about before with the judges stuff, that I didn't see what they had scored. But ultimately, what happened. We got to talk about it. We got to get into the knee. We talk about that, the getting lost in the moment. I was about to call it a crime of passion. You get lost in the moment, right? And everybody's been playing a sport, even playing football, hockey, whatever. Someone cross-checks you. I remember when I was playing football, some dude clipped me when I was running downfield, and I got up and had some choice words to say. You just get kind of lost in the mix. Do you think that number one, do you think that's what happened with Jan? Number two, do you think that's an excuse? And then after we get to those two, we got to talk about the coaching, because that's a huge part of it. But do you think that's what happened with Jan? Do you think he just got lost? What was up?
I think it's entirely possible that he didn't know that he was fully on the ground, on the canvas. That's always possible. He was in the middle of an exchange with him. Sterling was using taking a knee as a strategy to not get kicked.
Absolutely.
And that's part of the rules. And I think that it's pretty universal in MMA that you don't knee or kick somebody that's on the ground, on the canvas. So I personally think that Jan just got caught up in the moment. That's what I think. I don't think that I don't want to say that he wasn't aware, because I don't think that necessarily would be true. I think he just got caught up in it. And he got caught up in an exchange. And if you think about what was happening there, Sterling was taking a knee to avoid the punishment as part of his strategy. He was on the defense to begin with. I think Sterling was looking to close out the fight.
100%.
That's what I think. And there was a
The
few
Jan
moments,
or Sterling was trying to close out the fight?
I'm sorry, Jan was looking to close out the fight. And there was a few moments in there where Jan was starting to measure him with some pretty good shots.
Yeah, he was winning exchanges. Completely agree.
And not only that, but he was now, I think Sterling was getting tired, and Jan was starting to land the punches that either Sterling was going to get TKO'd, maybe not KO'd complete, but he was going to either get TKO'd or I don't think it was going to end as a victory for him. Yeah. And I think he was taking the knee as a defensive position to try and minimize the damage. Yeah, I don't think he got frustrated.
I don't think so either.
It's like a Mike Tyson bite the ear out of frustration thing.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about that last night, where it's like, do you think Jan got frustrated? I didn't think that. I thought more than anything it was a miscommunication with the coaching in the corner.
Well, now there's the surprise to me that when a cat's in an MMA fight, that he looks over at his corner for instruction in that setting. So partially that when I watched it on the replay, it didn't look like he was looking over at the corner for instruction. Honestly, from the position that we're at as a spectator, you can't really tell where his corner is.
Right.
And I did watch through on the broadcast last night, and I did actually see the part where you could see his corner saying, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything about knee him or kick him.
No, I didn't see that either. No.
I thought I heard punch, and he ended up kneeing. And my personal opinion is it doesn't matter. There's a couple of things. I just don't think that he recognized it as that Sterling is completely down. I can't do that. I think he was just caught up in the moment, and I think that he was a shark that had tasted blood, and he's going in for the kill. And that's what he was thinking.
That's an interesting point, because I mean, it's so tough. It's so tough to sit here and watch it from the sidelines and then try and put yourself in those shoes of Jan, and it's like you don't know what that dude's thinking. It's probably true. I mean, there's a championship defense for him. Mm-hmm. It's a big-time fight on a big-time card, right? And he smells blood in the water, and he's trying to go for the kill.
He's going for the finish.
I don't blame him for that at all. I do think that, when the fighters are in there, it really seems, because you can really tell. Like, you can tell when you watch some fighters, like Gaethje is the guy who comes to mind, where he, as a coach, I feel like at least you need to take the brain of your fighter you need to like remove in a sense, and you need to be his brain. You need to tell him what to do. You need to tell him what to look for a little bit. Yeah, he's got to have a brain in the ring, but for the most part, when we're talking strategy, it really seems like that coach is going to be like, okay, we're going to go, here's the things to fix coming out of the first round, fix those in the second round, do this and this, and let's go. Let's go get a win. And with Jan, I don't know enough about him to know if he relies that heavily on his coaches. I would imagine that a lot of guys rely heavily on those coaches, especially in that, because you don't want to get caught up in the moment, which I think a lot of guys could. But going into that that sequence of events with Jan, where he's got Sterling on the ground. Sterling has one knee on the ground, one knee up. I do want to say that. It wasn't like both knees were on the ground and he was on all fours and Jan just came in with a knee. It was bad. I'm not trying to make an excuse for Jan, and I think Jan feels horrible about it. We saw that with his tweet after. But it was just weird. Like, and the thing is, I haven't gone back and watched to see if when, and this is really interesting to me, is when he has Sterling on the ground and he's got his arm on his shoulder, right? And Sterling has one knee on the ground. I don't know if he like looks up and looks at his corner in like a what do I do? Because I do think that you might be able to make a case for Jan not being able to see that his second knee is on the ground. Because you can see, and now I know it doesn't matter that there's only one knee on the ground, but think about it. You're in the heat of the moment. You've got this dude on the ground. He's got one knee up. You're looking down at an angle. Maybe you think that other knee's coming up and you're trying to land a knee as he's getting back up. I don't know. And maybe that's making excuses for him, which is not something I want to do because I do think it was dirty. But
we're
what do you
just trying
think?
to figure it out.
Yeah.
And it was definitely, I didn't ever see at any moment where Jan looked like he was frustrated. And
No.
if there was a sense of frustration, then the idea of it being a sort of a dirty tactic would make sense. I didn't see that.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
A couple of things come to my mind. He thought his corner said knee him, so he did.
Yeah.
That's one. Another one is that he thought Sterling was starting to get up, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to knee him now." Is he starting to get up? Or he's just caught up in the moment and he's trying to finish the fight.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I think that it's probably a little bit of all of that, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
probably.
But I think, we're never going to figure it out. They'll do an interview with Jan. I'm sure he'll explain it for us. But the part that I was really impressed with, or the question first off was Sterling milking this? Have you ever been
100%.
kneed in the face? And I've been hit in the face a few times. When you get caught just right, and you think you're Batman.
Yeah.
You'd think you're Batman.
Yeah.
And that's the end of that.
Yeah.
And that's what initially I was like, oh, he's playing this. I don't think he was.
I don't think so either.
His actions afterward is what made me think that when
Completely
they gave him the
agree.
belt,
Yeah.
he took the belt off and left it in the ring, and he was like, "That's not how I plan on winning the belt at all."
Completely agree. And that is
hats off to him, by the way, for
Absolutely.
saying that's not how I envisioned this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really good point, and something that I wanted to hit on as well is just like, it's so, and you're talking to, I don't want to try and talk down to people where it's like, you've never played a sport, you don't know, but it's like when you get your bell rung, like you get your bell rung and you're seeing stars, and like you said, you think you're Batman. And there was a point, I'm not going to lie, there was a point where I was looking at Sterling on the ground and I was like, dude, what are we doing? Like, I don't want to say that he was faking it. I don't want to say that he was milking it, but that, I'm not going to lie, that did come across my mind where I was like, is this dude,
probably came across everyone's mind.
yeah, I was like, is this dude for real? And then you can see him start to get up and his legs are wobbly, and I was like, oh shit, I feel like an asshole for even thinking that.
Right.
But you could tell, and like it was classy, I guess, is the word that comes to mind for him to take it off and be like, no, this isn't how I wanted it. In the post-fight interview, he was talking with Rogan. He was like, no, this isn't how I wanted it. And I do respect him for that. On the flip side, if he would have walked around and been like, I'm the champ now, you would have been like, dude, what? Like, this guy's an asshole.
He didn't
What
have
the
that
hell?
option.
No. Yeah, exactly.
And
right?
I think if we were to say, what if, let's just say for the sake of conversation that he gets up and he's got like 2 or 3 minutes to clear his head, and they start scrapping again.
Yeah, that's bad.
Jan is going to decapitate him.
Yeah.
Because that guy was not able to go on.
No.
And he could not go on because and this is the other part that people will not think about, that I just want to put out there. He was not expecting to get hit in the face. If you're standing there squared up with somebody,
Right.
you're like, hey man, I'm going to get hit. That's part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, these guys, when they get hit and they were expecting to get hit, they absorb the hit, they move with the hit, they take the hit. The ones that knock you out are the ones that you don't expect to have happen. You don't see them coming. And that's what it was. He wasn't expecting that knee. That knee came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And these guys are top-tiered athletes. They get power in their pinky. Every part of their body is powerful.
Yeah.
And fast.
Yeah.
And ready to hit. And Jan caught him. He wasn't expecting it. He was probably going to need a good 5 or 6, 7, 8 minutes before he could see straight.
Yeah. That's the other thing is that I was hearing some chatter. I don't have any substantiation to this, but they were talking about it a little bit later. Like DC was talking about where he's like, if people were saying that he's acting, he should have got up and fought. Dude, no. Like you're seriously risking that dude's health from that point on. Very happy that and I don't think the UFC would have been like, no, you should try and fight. Like, dude, like you can't do that. That's scummy.
Do you think the UFC handled it the right way?
I think they did. You have the doc come in. It was kind of funny because it was like the doctor came in and it's like, what's the doc really going to do? Like, hey, you just got kneed in the face. How you doing? Bad. Okay, that's what I expected. Let's call it. Yeah. I do think that the UFC did what the rule stated. Okay, he got DQ'd. He gets the belt. It's up to him now to make it look. You know what I'm saying? Like he does what he wants with it from there. Yeah. And so I thought that Sterling handled it well. I thought that the UFC handled it well.
And Jan accepted responsibility for it, and he paid the price. And he says that in his tweet.
Yeah.
I paid the price for it, and it's time for us to move on.
Yeah, and so, I agree. I thought that everybody handled that
about
horrible.
As well as they could.
Yeah, horrible moment, horrible thing to do. It's weird because you're like, I don't think he did it on purpose, but it's like, well, he just need that dude in the face. Like clearly he meant to do that. So, and like if he got caught up, he got caught up. But that's why I love the UFC, man. It's like. You get those you get those moments where it's like the discrepancies and stuff like that, and usually the fighters handle it with class, and I thought that that's what happened last night. It is kind of another reason for me why I like the UFC so much, because number one, we're going to see a part 2 to that. I don't know if they fought before. Do you?
No, they didn't.
Okay, so we'll definitely see another fight. Regardless,
Sterling has been a guy. He's been a cat. I've kind of watched him for a little bit, and he's always been very, very impressive in the ring. Mm-hmm. He's not a slouch. There's a couple of guys that kind of remind me. Izzy reminds me of that. Usman reminds me, and they're all sort of like in that same mold where they're just great athletes. Mm-hmm. They make that fight game look easy the way they move.
Yeah,
they really, really do, and that creates a lot of problems for the other guy, which we're going to eventually get to the headlining fight.
Right.
And how you negate guys that fight like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I thought everybody, Sterling, good cat. I thought he handled this situation that happened about as well as he could have.
Yeah.
Jan, I'm really, really happy that he accepted responsibility for it. Seems like people today have a problem accepting responsibility.
Yeah.
He said, hey, my bad. I paid the price for it. Yep. And let's move on to part 2, which I'm sure there will be a part 2. There'll be a lot of tape for those guys to go over to figure out how they manage part 2.
Yeah. And the thing that's interesting about it, last thing I do want to say, is that wasn't a fight that I look at, because sometimes there's part 2s where you're like, all right, we know the book on this. Like this dude's gonna win. Yeah. I don't think that that's the case with Jan Sterling. Like I could see Sterling coming out, kind of retooling his game a little bit, fixing some things up, tightening some screws, and making that not that the fight wasn't tight to begin with, but a legit fight where I'm like, oh shit, Sterling might pull this thing out. Like I would not be surprised to see that. But kind of wrapping that up now, we've been on that for a little bit. Moving on to the next fight, which was Amanda Nunes and Megan Anderson. I believe that was the next fight. We had a snoozer, I think, to start the fight card.
Yeah, so the next fight up for us was Nunes and
Megan Anderson.
Yeah. And
really
I'd be lying if I said I know the pedigree on Anderson. This is the thing about Amanda Nunes that separates her even from the guys class. Mm-hmm. She goes out and fights, and she looks like she's having a great time.
Yeah.
She really, really does. And there's not a lot of people that go out. Even Mike Tyson, when he fought back in the day, I don't really know for sure that he liked fighting. It was his job.
Yeah.
And I don't think he liked the training. Not sure that he probably liked afterwards, but that hope, and everyone's different about that. Nunes just looks like she's having a great time.
Yeah.
How possibly do you fight somebody and step into their world when they're like, I'm having fun, man.
No place I'd rather be.
No place I'd rather be.
Yeah.
When's my next fight?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the thing with Amanda Nunes is, she has run through everyone. And we were kind of talking about this the other day where it's like,
who's next?
Yeah, who's next? And it's not that we don't like Amanda Nunes, because I like Amanda Nunes. I think that she's
You've got to appreciate someone when they're on top of the game.
And she's not going anywhere.
Nope.
There's no one who's challenged her. I mean, she has run through everybody. And Megan Anderson, kind of going into that fight, because I guess we will talk about it a little bit. Now at this point with Amanda Nunes, I think basically everybody she fights has an L on their record before they even step into the octagon. Like before they get into that fight, Megan Anderson, and again, I don't know her pedigree that well either, but obviously she had to win a couple of fights to get there. Megan Anderson did not look like she was going to win at any point last night. Like walking out, getting into the ring, getting into the octagon, any of that. She was beat from the minute she stepped out, and Amanda Nunes praise on that, man. She's a lioness. She can smell. She smells fear. She knows that those girls don't want to be in the octagon with her, and she just dominates from the absolute get-go. I mean, Megan Anderson's 6 feet tall. Like, you'd think, like, hey, work the jab, keep her at a distance. Don't let her. Doesn't matter.
Didn't matter.
Doesn't matter. She's going to work right through any bullshit you try and throw at her. She's going to work in. She throws absolute haymakers. She drops bombs.
One of the things in the 15 seconds or so that fight lasted, Megan Anderson, I don't want to be rude about it, but looked like she hadn't really been in that kind of a scrap.
Yeah.
Her movement was really, really not very good.
Bad.
She did not have what I would define as athletic movement for defense. And as soon as Amanda Nunes closed the gap on her, she got brought down and on the ground. She was in trouble.
Yeah.
She had no answer for it. And the fight was over. Like I said, what did we get? 30 seconds out of that.
I literally think the fight went for like $1.15.
Yeah.
And even like legit when we said like Amanda Nunes was a minus 910 favorite going into that fight. Megan Anderson was like plus 550 because Vegas didn't want to take the chance in case Megan Anderson landed just a miracle punch. But never going to happen. I mean, everybody that we were talking to on that call was like, this isn't going past the first round. And
And so we look at the pedigree type thing. There's not a lot of people out there. There are some, the person that comes to my mind is Holm. I really, really like her as a fighter, and I know she already got kicked in the head by Amanda Nunes, and she did not survive that.
She won her last fight though, and she won it pretty handedly.
She's on a little bit of a streak, and she's got pedigree to fight,
Yeah.
and she's a competitor.
Yeah.
So that to me, and they're talking about some other names out there that Amanda Nunes has already fought, and I think fought twice and beat her twice.
Yeah, the name floating around is Valentina
Correct.
Shevchenko. I want to say her last name is. She's been, just an absolute buzzsaw, buzzing through people like it's not an issue. I honestly just don't see how anyone can fight and legitimately walk into an octagon with the feeling that they're going to beat Amanda Nunes. She's just running through people. She throws bombs. She doesn't care what you're going to do. She's having fun doing it. I mean, she's out there last night with her partner and her newborn baby. Like they're at a Sunday barbecue. Yeah. And it's like you just took off this lady's head, or not really that. You just ripped her arm out of her socket, choked her, or got her to tap, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And she's out afterwards hanging out, having a good time. I mean, she's just an absolute buzzsaw, man. Just grinding through people, no problem at all. I don't know who's next. I guess Shevchenko, but I think,
So UFC 215 and I think UFC 196, they've already fought.
Shevchenko and
there were decision wins for Nunes. And I mean, if you want to go and do that again, sure.
I mean, as long as Nunes can be in the octagon for more than 30 seconds, I guess it'd be a good fight.
So, but again, she just goes out there and she has a great time.
Yeah.
How do you beat somebody like that? That's and like you said, she comes in there with her family after, and I thought it was a really endearing moment when Megan and Nunes
Yeah,
go over,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and I just think that the sportsmanship behind that is, to me, really, really cool to see. It really is,
Yeah.
especially today.
Yeah.
And I just thought that's really, really neat that they can put the scrap behind them. Hey, here's my child. Oh my God, that's so cute. Great.
Yeah.
Really, really cool to see
Yeah,
that.
super cool,
You
man.
know, Amanda Nunes is going to be around until she decides she's done.
Yeah,
And
pretty
that's,
much.
you know, and they're going to have to go and find people. They're going to have to, you know, hey man, go dig them up somewhere.
I got a question for you. At
Yeah.
this point, do you think Dana looks at Amanda Nunes as more of a problem than a solution? Do you think that he looks at her and goes, who in the F? Because I don't want to drop an F bomb.
Yeah.
Who in the F do you think, or who in the F am I going to have fight you?
Yeah, I think it is a problem for him.
You know?
I think, you know, I mean, I think having women's MMA kind of coming out is really, really exciting. It opens up a whole new field for competition. And it's nice to see that competition.
Yeah.
Right now, you really don't have it.
Yeah.
There's Amanda Nunes, and then there's everyone else.
Yeah.
Just like there's Tom Brady,
And
then
there's everyone else. That's right. We're
And-
big Brady guys on the podcast.
So-
Pops has some roots back east, so you'll hear some New England
Yeah.
stuff dropped in here and there. But no, but
So
it's true though. It's like
there's her, and then in the women's division at her weight class, and I think last night she's about a 145.
yeah,
So and she's a strong girl.
Yeah.
She's gonna. You want to go to the ground? Cool. You want to stand up? I'll punch you.
yeah,
And having a person having that pedigree. Hey, if it's going to be the Valentina gal, awesome for a third fight. I don't know that. I mean,
a trilogy that she's lost to.
She's lost 2 in a row already. Let's go for 3.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, I think it is a problem for Dana White.
Yeah,
I really do.
I mean that competition is obviously something that's so key in the UFC, and you know we see that with the 155s, and that's a topic for a whole nother podcast. I don't want to dive into that quite yet. We have
UFC has to have rivalry.
Yeah.
And right now,
I mean, that's
with,
why
with
that's
a girl
why
like that, there isn't rivalry.
Yeah,
There's
I mean,
just her and everybody else.
Yeah, she's just grinding. And so, but like the rivalry is so important. I mean, you look at a guy like Conor right now, and Conor's got rivalry with people every fight and that's the thing that like, kind of going off topic here, but when we start talking about the draws to the UFC, like you look at Nunes and you look at a guy like Conor. Like Conor can make any fight a rivalry, and I think that's what's special about it. Just
his mouth.
Yeah, just with his mouth, just how he's gonna shit talk people. Like he can make any fight a rivalry, which I love. But Amanda Nunes, I don't follow it with a microscope. I don't follow it with a magnifying glass. I don't know it, tweet for tweet like a lot of people do. But I don't see her trash talking. I don't see her in interviews lighting people up. Like she just is who she is. She's gonna roll through. She's gonna beat the shit out of you, and she's gonna walk away with the belt.
I think people saw, and one of the names that comes to mind for me is for a couple of different reasons. For the ladies' MMA, Ronda Rousey was, for many people, threw her name out there for pound, one of the greatest fighters of all time. And now people are like, oh, she was in the UFC? Yeah. So...
the chick from the movies, because we've seen a couple movies.
That one, and first off, the level of competition really wasn't there. But Rousey
in the
very
early days.
very seldom left the first round.
Yeah.
Usually, she had the ability to close the gap on people. She was going to scrap with them, but within a few moments, she was going to able to close that ground, grab onto them, and she was going to put them on the mat. And then she was going to use her judo, and she's very, 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 very good at judo, and that's where she was going to win. And she did it over and over again, and many people said she's unbeatable. She's unbeatable.
Yeah.
Beautiful gal. She's got everything.
Yeah.
She's an athlete. She's she's got the anger when she goes in there. And Amanda Nunes made her look like she was a woman who had never, ever been in a fight before.
That was a rough watch.
Yeah. Really
rough watch for Ronda Rousey fans.
My contention here is that there's going to be another scenario like that happens for Amanda Nunes. And there's a girl out there who's watching Amanda Nunes, and she's like, I'm going to beat that girl someday.
Okay. So that kind of leads me to my next question to kind of wrap up the Amanda Nunes topic. Excuse me. Do you think that she will retire unbeaten, like on this streak, obviously, because she has been beat? Or do you think that someone's going to beat her?
No, I think she'll go. Well, it kind of depends, but I think that there's a girl right now training that she's Amanda Nunes has set the bar, and there's a girl out there that wants to beat it, that wants to beat her. I would see Amanda Nunes. She has a nice enough personality that I would not be surprised if she says, "Yeah, I'm done with this. Do you have a spot for me in the booth?"
Yeah, that'd be
And
cool.
That'd
be cool.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. That wouldn't surprise me at all. And I'm not saying that. Oh, I know she's going to retire. I don't know, but again, though, she just looks like she's having a great time in there.
Yeah.
She just does.
Yeah, I know. No place I'd rather be. Those are the scariest fighters.
Yeah.
The people who are just like mid-round, like round two, and they're just like smiling like, you could offer me a fully paid trip to Hawaii right now, and I would probably turn it down because I love this shit.
Got round 4 coming up.
Yeah. So that kind of wraps up Nunes, Anderson. Anything else on that, or are we good?
No, I just I think your question was a good one. Is she going to retire? Is she going to? I wouldn't be surprised if in the not in a year or so, 2 years, there's not a lot of people out there left for her.
Yeah,
and that's that I'm sure there's a girl out there who says I'm going to beat her, but I don't know that that's going to take a while for that person to get to the level that Nunes is at, and for them to have that fight. Does she retire before that?
Right.
I think if she had the offer to go in the booth and announce,
why not at this point, right? Like just no one else is competing. So anyway, that's going to do it for the Amanda Nunes, Megan Anderson. Obviously,
Izzy.
the headliner, Izzy, Jan. Good fight. Good fight. It's one thing that I love about the UFC is there really isn't a lot of guys that I just hate and can't stand, and that's kind of something that it's cool with sports because everybody needs a villain. Absolutely. I love both of these guys. I love Izzy. I love Jan. I fell in love with Izzy's whole career when he had the I'm prepared to die. That's just. Something about that just speaks volumes to me, and it's super cool. Dude's a warrior, and Jan's a warrior. Polish power, man. The kid, that kid's a stud. The rope story, which if people don't know, really when I started to really really like Jan was the rope that he. So basically, Jan wasn't doing great in the UFC, and he was out walking his dog. And in Poland, I don't know if you guys know this about the Polish people, but when they find anyway, let me circle back on that. Jan's walking his dog. He sees some dude who just hung himself. He's hanging from the tree. Sorry to get graphic, but Jan calls the police. They cut the guy down. Jan says, let me keep that rope. Because I guess in Poland, it's good luck to hang on to the rope that somebody killed themselves with. So now Jan, in his locker, has this rope that some dude killed himself with. And like Jan hasn't lost since he's found the rope. And it's just an insane story. And that kind of all of it, Izzy just annihilating Paulo Costa, running through Robert Whittaker. Before that, Kelvin Gastelum, he's been a buzzsaw. Jan just dominating, kind of missing the boat with John Jones. Well, we can talk about that a little bit, but it was really weird to see these two guys in the ring just because of the size difference and who they are, their backgrounds, and it just seems like worlds colliding. In a really, really weird way, but kind of going through that fight, what were your thoughts on it just to start? What do you think about it?
There's a lot of background there that made it an exceptional headline fight. It was exciting to see Izzy step up, and my big thought is, here's a guy who's 20-0. Mm-hmm. And he's putting on some weight. Now we can talk about what the walk around weight is for these guys, and I'm sure that Izzy's not a small cat.
No, he's 6'4".
Yeah, so for him to add on the extra weight, I thought, how is this going to play out with his conditioning and and so on. There was a lot of background story that made a pretty good fight here, and I thought it was really impressive that he wanted to go out and take that chance to put his 20-0 record on the line.
Yeah.
Hanging in the balance for him in the UFC is the John Jones drama. And didn't realize the size difference between him and Jan until they were standing there next to each other on fight day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I was
Yeah,
like,
Jan's thick, man.
Jan's a thick. I
Yeah.
mean, he's a thick guy.
Yeah.
He's not a small cat either. Honestly, I thought Izzy was going to win.
Yeah.
Really, really did.
Really.
When Izzy started doing, I had mentioned earlier, how Sterling fought, and Izzy's movement is it's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was throwing. People were calling him, the question mark kicker or some crazy thing like that.
Yeah.
It's roundhouse kick is what the martial artist people would call it.
Is that what we call it? I always thought it was question mark kick.
And those things were like daggers.
Oh.
And I was like, sooner or later, he's going to catch
Jan.
Jan.
I thought the same thing. I thought that he was going to catch Jan.
Jan was going to be trying to defend against something like that, and he was going to get punched. Jan fought a great fight.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah, and that was, kind of going into it, I kind of felt the same way. I thought that my big thing is I thought that if Jan could work inside on Izzy and not be at the end of those kicks, not be at the end of, the crazy shit that Izzy will do with the spinning back fists and always trying to catch dudes kind of when they're fading away. I thought if Jan could work inside on that, make it more of a power game, that he was going to have a good chance to win. And it's kind of surprisingly, that really wasn't Jan's strategy. He didn't really seem like he wanted to work inside on Izzy and start dropping bombs. That just didn't seem like what he wanted to do. They stood up a lot. Jan kept it up for 3 rounds, and then
Jan had the confidence in his punch game.
That's really what it is, right?
And he had the confidence to do that, but he ends up, and I don't know if you had this question in your mind, but in my mind, you have a guy who's much, much bigger, and the walk around weight. What weight do they actually weigh when they walk into the octagon on fight night? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But he looks significantly larger to me, and I was wondering at what point we were going to see him use that weight.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think everybody was thinking that, yeah.
And I just want to point this out. The times that he opted to use that weight were very, very specific. And that, to me, was part of Jan's design for this fight. He's going to stay out of trouble, land his punches when he can, through the first, second, third round, land his punches when he can, not get hit, have the confidence that your chin can take that punch by a technically lighter guy, although there wasn't a lot of weight difference between the two by the time they got there.
Yeah.
Right?
I think Jan weighed in at 205.
And I
Izzy
think
weighed
Jan
in at
said
204.
When he was being interviewed, he was not as fast as I expected him to be, but he hit harder.
Yeah.
So that tells you something about where Jan's mind was at with the fight. And then in the 4th round, and he waits until, and this was the key to me, goes into the 4th round, and he waits until about the 2.5 minute remaining in the round before he actually takes Izzy down. Mm-hmm. And then he smothers him for the rest of the fight.
Yeah.
For that rest of that 4th round. And then he does exactly the same thing in the 5th round. That was by design.
Yeah.
He picked that. And I watched when he took Izzy down in the 5th round. I looked at the clock and I'm like, he's got 2 minutes to keep him down, and he's going to ground and pound on him for the next 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You didn't see that in the 1st round, the 2nd round, and the 3rd round, and I'll tell you why. Because Izzy, if he would have got exposed to that in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round, he wouldn't have let it happen in the 4th round. He wouldn't have definitely not let it happen in the 5th round, because in a fight like that, that's how you lose the fight. You've lost control of it. You're on the bottom. You may throw a couple of shots coming up, but you're going to get elbowed, you're going to get punched, you're going to get smothered, and you're going to spend a lot of energy just trying to breathe, having that 220-pound guy on top of you.
Yeah.
So I think Jan picked those moments because, like I said, if he would have done it in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, he wouldn't have been able to do it in the 4th and in the 5th, and that's when he needed it, and he won those 2 rounds decisively, and I think that's the scoring difference that you see at the end of it when they announced the scores. I was really surprised about that, but it came from that.
Yeah, I agree. And we saw, I think with this fight, there were a couple of things that really stuck out to me. First and foremost, I think Izzy's chin is way better than I thought. Because what I thought with Izzy was that I I thought that he was just too slippery to hit, and that's why he hadn't really been challenged yet. It was really cool to see Israel Adesanya challenged in the ring. It's really cool to, and Jan's had some decent fights in the past where he's been challenged, but not like he did with Izzy. And that fight was a chess match. So much credit needs to be said to Izzy and Jan and that chess match, that strategy that's going on. And you're 100% right. If Jan tries to take him down rounds 1 or 2, Izzy's like, all right, I can't let that happen again. I have to keep this guy at a distance.
He's that good.
Yes.
You're not 20-0 in the UFC on accident.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? You are capable of being able to fight your fight, and you are capable of doing the things that you're good at, and that you keep away from those fields where the other guy is really, really good.
Yeah.
You don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and Jan, like I said with Izzy's chin, Jan caught Izzy a couple of times. And I've been saying this for the last couple of hours after that fight and this morning. Like, Jan caught Izzy a couple of times on some punches that I was like, wow, I thought Izzy would go down after getting hit like that. I thought we would see some wobble. I thought we would see the sailor's legs. But he stuck it out. He fought well.
Or he has a great poker face.
Yeah, or he's got a phenomenal poker face, which is 100% a possibility. But obviously, the things that stick out, I thought we saw a very, very interesting Jan being challenged mentally mid-fight, which I think is where he ultimately won that. And you're right, that strategy of, okay, we got to wait to the 4th and 5th to take him down, played a massive factor. Izzy's athleticism kind of shown through. That's par for the course at this point. We all know what this guy can do. It doesn't mean it doesn't amaze me every time.
You put him on his back, though.
Yeah.
Athleticism doesn't mean a thing.
Yeah,
and he tried
true.
to get out from underneath that, couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And you could actually see when I watched him on his back, it's like he actually cannot get up.
Yeah. He's trying.
Whether it's fatigue, whether it's this guy's just too good at keeping me down. But I think Izzy knew, hey, I'm not going to get out from underneath this.
So do you think early in the fight we saw Izzy hammer that calf kick a couple of times, hammer that lower leg kick? Do you think that Jan figured it out and was checking it later and Izzy didn't want to go back to it? Do you think he forgot about it? Do you think that's something he could have done? What did you feel about that?
I think that when you throw out leg kicks, there's a plus and a minus. If the leg kick is successful and you hit him and you can compile a series of leg kicks on somebody, then good for you, right? Then you're going to, that's like money in the bank for you for later. When you leg kick somebody, you leg kick him again, you leg kick him again. I don't think that the leg kicks were having the toll on Jan that he was hoping, because Jan continued to come forward. You will see when a guy's getting leg kicked and they stop coming forward, you're like, okay, the leg kicks are working.
Yeah.
Right? That didn't happen with Jan. He continued to press. He continued to move, and I think that Izzy maybe felt that it's not worth the risk
energy
of throwing a leg kick out there and then have him countering me, because that's what Jan was doing.
Yeah.
He leg kicked, but then he was getting hit back.
Yeah.
So in order for you to do every single thing, it doesn't matter what it is in MMA, every single thing you do, there's going to be a counter for it that costs you.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do something, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis and say, is it worth it for me to do this? Because if I miss it, or if I keep going to this and hitting him, it's not doing anything, then why bother?
Yeah. And you saw Jan with that early. I think in round, we saw, I think, his first takedown attempt in like the second round, and you could tell that Jan was like, not yet. Not yet. We're not quite there yet. We gotta wear on him a little bit more. And he picked his shots. He picked that time. And the one thing that I thought was applaudable from Jan is the fact that when he took Izzy to the ground, he was doing work on him. He wasn't just laying on top of him, right? Yeah. He's trying to advance his position. He's trying to get into half guard. He's trying to move up top. Like, he's doing a lot of things. What he showed is
definitive control, dominance, and for sure, I suppose you could give those 10-8 rounds. I suppose you could, but there's, like I said to you, what it reminded me of is I was thinking about it post-fight thoughts. Marvin Hagler and Sugar Ray Leonard fought a really, really great fight. I mean, those are two warriors from back in the day. And as you know, I'm a big Marvin Hagler fan.
We are big Hagler fans.
Big Hagler fan. For people who don't know and you want some thrilling fights, watch the Hagler-Hearns fight. Best 4 rounds of boxing you'll ever see in your life.
Those two guys are warriors.
Sugar Ray Leonard, when he fought Marvin Hagler, waited, and they had great exchanges. But in the last 30 seconds of a lot of the rounds, he started throwing a lot of pitter-patter punches, right? And those won rounds.
Yeah.
And people walked away from that, and for the judges, they're scoring the fight in between in between rounds. What they remember is Sugar Ray Leonard shoe shining Marvin Hagler, and they go, "Oh, Leonard won that round," which they weren't damaging punches, nothing like that, but it sends an impression to the judge. And for Jan's thing, he waits until round 4. 2 minutes to go, and he's on top of Izzy, just dominating him completely.
Yeah.
Elbows here, punches there, just doing enough, keeping Izzy where he can't do what Izzy likes to do, which is use that distance, use that octagon, kick, leg kick, head kick, body kick, punch, back fist, whatever he wants. But you put him on his back and all that athleticism right out the window. And what you remember as a judge is that, Jan won that round 4, dominant.
Yeah.
And then same thing on round 5.
Same thing in round 5. Completely agree.
So I would say, to me, round 1 was a wash.
Yeah. We agreed on that. I felt like round 1 was a wash as well.
I felt round 2, I thought was Jan.
I agree.
Thought Jan. Round 3, Izzy.
Yep.
And you walk away from 4 and 5, Jan.
Yeah.
Jan.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think some of because we were listening to the scorecard, and one of them had it like 49-46 or something like that. And I was like, I didn't think that. And I was like, the only thing that makes sense is they scored 5-10-8. They scored round 5, 10-8 for Jan. So
it was like about the 2 minute mark. And the takedowns were not sloppy takedowns either.
No,
one of those
takedowns.
He hit him hard in the
good
back.
Good takedowns,
right?
yeah.
So that's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, the big question for Izzy, does he stay up at the twos or does he go back down? And I think that he wants to go back down to 185. That's his territory.
Yeah.
And then some other time we can talk about his next match.
Yeah.
But props to that guy.
That's exactly what I want to hit on next. Is Izzy, Izzy has quickly become one of my favorite fighters, and if it's not for the absolute warrior mentality and his fight against Gastelum, it's for the fact that after his fight against Jan, where he puts a 20-0 record on the line, he goes, dare to be great. And that's exactly what he did. He was like, I believe that I'm going to be able to go up to the 205s and I'm going to be able to compete at the 205s. And he put everything on the line for that. You have to give that dude credit for it. He fought well. He easily could have won that fight. But the pros and cons for Izzy taking that fight, being 20-0, it's a ton of, honestly, it's like a ton of street cred in a way,
I agree.
It's a ton of street cred.
And for Jan, I think his strategy, I wonder what conversation you and I would be having if Jan did not take him down in 4 and 5.
Yeah. I would probably be saying, why didn't he take him down?
Yeah.
Why didn't he take him down in 4 and 5?
And it was really, really outstanding choice of action for that point in the fight.
Yeah.
And for Izzy, dare to be great. When he gave his interview afterwards, I was like, that's a really, really, you can't knock it.
Not at all.
You just can't.
He's a cool dude. He's a cool dude, man. Again, I don't know, really what his perception is online. He's he's a little bit of a cornball, absolutely. He's a little bit, but I think that he embodies that. He embraces that with the whole the anime, the cartoon stuff, and the dude's such a unique character, and he really embodies what it means to be a UFC fighter. He's very skilled in a number of different areas. That's what you have to do to win. He's taken the UFC by storm. Very interested to see what happens next. I think a lot of it hangs on this Whitaker-Costa fight. I believe that's next month. But, I think that it'll be really interesting to see what happens with Izzy from here, regardless of how that fight played out. He took it like an absolute champ, an absolute classy individual. And the same with Jan. Jan was very classy about that. That's the thing that was nice about that fight, is that it's not like either of them got their pride taken away. It's not like any of them got their pride.
Yeah, they left it out there. They did what they could.
It was cool.
So what I'm curious about moving forward, when fighters lose their first fight, so Mike Tyson lost his fight to Buster Douglas, and one of the most phenomenal fights ever.
Yeah, great fight.
I mean,
a lot could be said about that. Yeah,
Buster Douglas gave people the blueprint to beat Mike Tyson.
Yeah,
that's what he did.
Yeah, we were talking about this last night. Go ahead, finish your thought.
And I wonder now moving forward for all of the guys who look at the 20-0 fighter that's now 20-1, and they look at Jan and they go, Jan's not the most athletic guy. He's not. I mean, he's a 38-year-old guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, he is up there.
He's up there, and he basically gave us the blueprint of how to beat Izzy.
Yeah.
So I kind of wonder, and that's a big exposure risk for Izzy. Really, really, really big. And moving forward, his next fight, his next couple of fights, that's going to be something to watch.
Yeah.
Because people now have the blueprint to how, put him on his back. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I agree with you, but I think that guys have to be good enough to get there, you know, and it's like,
Look at Jan.
well, but that's what I'm saying. Jan's a phenomenal fighter. Like, Jan is a very strategic, good chess match fighter.
He brought it for this fight.
Yeah.
That he did.
And so that's the thing, is that it's like, you know, who is going to in that? I think he's a 185. Who in that? Yeah, who in that 185 class is going to be able to work in like Jan did?
I think a lot of guys are going to look at him and go, "Now I'm going to go back and watch."
That's how we got to do it.
I got 25 minutes of blueprint on how to beat Izzy.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering.
It's a good point. It really is, and only time will tell whether or not we get to see that. My computer has a 14% battery, and I can't charge it right now, so we're going to have to wrap this one up pretty quick. Do you have any final thoughts, anything else? Oh, I do want to hit on one thing just really, really quickly. We didn't listen to the fight with audio on, and apparently there's been some rumblings that DC and Joe Rogan were very biased toward Izzy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So we listened to the fight with the audio off because we were talking with people. Apparently, like, I've seen it floating around that, you know, Rogan and DC were like, "Oh, I got it 3-0 Izzy right now," and everybody was like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
So just something interesting, just something kind of funny. You know, obviously we can't really comment on it because we didn't hear it.
Didn't hear it. Yeah. I won't make a comment on something unless I saw it or heard it.
Yeah.
You know, directly. So.
It's a good standard.
You know, DC and Joe, those guys have been around the game forever.
Legends,
so,
yeah.
You know, they see it. I mean, we've all seen fights that you look at and go, I don't understand how it can be called that way. I just don't. What I do, Izzy's very flashy, and he looked very, very much, like I said, he's got a great poker face. At no point in that fight did he look like, hey, man, I'm in some trouble. Certainly the way the fight played out, I wouldn't have thought the score that they read off at the end of it. It's not what I would have expected.
No, I agree.
But then I sit there and I think, okay, the first round was a wash. If I was actually scoring the first round for me, and I look at some of that, I might call it an even round.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do that, but I might say there was no clear decisive winner. The second round I thought was Jan Izzy in the third.
Yeah.
And then
4 and 5.
the takedowns you can't be on top of somebody for 2 minutes at the end of each round and feeding them elbows and then say, "Oh yeah, I lost that round."
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, I didn't hear DC and Joe.
Yeah, it was weird. Just something that I wanted to throw in here. I don't really have anything. You got anything else?
No. We're really enjoyed being able to come out and wrap on this here, and I look forward to doing it again.
Yeah, we'll be back, man. We'll be back. That's the one thing about the UFC. That's kind of how I fell in love with it throughout all this madness. Dana's still out there putting out content, putting out fights. Those, you know, the guys who are fighting are still, you know, ready to roll, ready to rock, and it's commendable. It really is. UFC is an absolute class act organization. It's something that I think that a lot of, you know, other sports organizations can kind of look at and see the blueprint of how to run it. Not that they run it poorly, but, you know, the UFC just does it well. So that's going to kind of conclude, I guess, our first episode. We don't really have a name yet. We'll figure that out down the road. Hope everybody enjoyed. Once again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. There's going to be more content coming your way. Don't you worry, folks. Don't you worry. But that's all we got for you guys today. We'll see you next time. Everybody stay safe. Wash those hands. You know how it is, folks. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.